Max Verstappen became a conversation point in Formula One for the 100th-something time in his career. The FIA punished the Red Bull Racing driver to community work for cursing during a news conference before of the Singapore Grand Prix. He wasn't all too happy about it.
As I went into qualifying, I knew the car was...
He's even talking about taking action against the FIA with the other drivers, or even worse. This all brought up a comparison that has been made before, the one between Verstappen and Senna. Verstappen has many shared characteristics with F1 superstar Ayrton Senna, both on and off the track. Many Formula One experts believe Verstappen resembles Brazilian icon Senna on the track. Both drivers were capable of overtaking by braking late, saving tyres while driving as fast as the rest of the field, overcompensating under pressure, and dominating in the wet. Verstappen and Senna do, however, agree on several other points. Verstappen and Senna's excellence is determined by more than just their track speed. Take the 1990 Japanese Grand Prix as an example. Senna was on pole for McLaren and may win his second world championship in the event. Interestingly, the FIA, backed by French President Jean-Marie Balestre, chooses to let Senna start on the muddy side of the track. This suited Balestre's compatriot, Alain Prost, who began in second place. After Prost overtook Senna at the start, the Brazilian made a choice that cost him popularity, but earned him his second world championship. Senna promptly drove away from Prost and handed over his statement to Balestre. Mohammed Ben Sulayem said before the Singapore Grand Prix last weekend that he intends to address drivers' profanity over the team radio. Verstappen, who was joined by Yuki Tsunoda at the news conference before the race at the Marina Bay Street circuit, responded with the F word. The FIA stepped in right away, and Verstappen was already subjected to community service before qualifying. Verstappen, like Senna in 1990, provided a statement to the FIA. During the post-qualifying and race news conference, the three-time world champion elected to answer press questions openly or not at all. Verstappen noted that outside of the press conference, journalists might expect detailed replies in the paddock. Meanwhile, Verstappen got support from other Formula One drivers in the paddock. Lewis Hamilton, one of Verstappen's greatest rivals, has previously stated that Verstappen should not serve the community service punishment at all. Furthermore, Alexander Wurz, president of the GPDA, has stated that the drivers may approach the FIA. But one thing is certain. Verstappen, like Senna, is shaking up the entire Formula One field. He handled Sunday's post-race conference more casually, although he still only provided brief responses to questions from presenter Tom Clarkson and the assembled journalists. That did not finish his protest, as he continued to speak with the media thereafter, expressing his persistent anger with the sentence and admitting it will have an influence on his F1 future. Could F1 be ruining the relationship with its current star? When asked if this saga would play into his already uncertain long-term F1 future, Verstappen replied, "I mean, these kind of things definitely decide my future as well. If you can't be yourself, or you have to deal with these kinds of silly things. I'm now at the stage of my career that you don't want to be dealing with this all the time. It's really tiring. Of course it's great to have success and win races, but once you've accomplished all that, winning championships and races, then you want to just have a good time as well. Everyone is pushing to the limit. Everyone in this paddock, even at the back of the grid. But if you have to deal with all these kinds of silly things, for me, that is not a way of continuing in this sport. That's for sure." Verstappen said he'll use the forthcoming break to consider whether to continue the protest for the remainder of the season. "I will always be myself. I will not, because of that, change how I am in my life, anyway, but also how I'm operating here," Verstappen said when asked if a conversation with FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem would change things. "At the end of the day, I don't know how serious the FIA, will take that kind of stuff. But for me, of course, at one point when it's enough, and we'll see. Racing will go on, F1 will go on, also without me. It's not a problem. It's also not a problem for me. It's how it is." Verstappen made sure he did enough in both Saturday and Sunday's press briefings to avoid extra penalty from the FIA. The sole need is that drivers attend and provide any responses to the questions given. For me personally, there is of course absolutely no desire to then give normal answers there. When you get treated like that, Verstappen said. I never really felt like I had a bad relationship with them. Even this year I did voluntary work with, like, junior stewards. I gave them like a half-an-hour interview. I tried to also help out. They have little favors over there. I'm not too difficult a person to say no, like, okay, sure, if that's what you guys like, I like to help out. And then you get treated like that. That's just not how it works. For me, it was quite straightforward. I know that I have to answer. It doesn't say how long you have to answer. Verstappen is concerned that consequences such as his risk would limit the individuality of F1 drivers. I know, of course, you can't insult people. That is quite straightforward. I think no one really wants to do that, says Verstappen. It's all a bit too soft, really. And honestly, it's super silly what we're dealing with. If you can't really be yourself to the fullest, then it's better not to speak. But that's what no one wants, because then you become a robot, and that's not how you should be going about it in this sport. Verstappen reported the issue with the Grand Prix Drivers Association, saying, everyone was laughing, like, what the hell is that, basically. It is very, very silly. On Saturday, Lewis Hamilton said he would refuse to do community service if he were in Verstappen's shoes, while also expressing compassion for Verstappen. He's also not the one being punished. When Hamilton's statement was brought to his attention, Verstappen called it up. At the moment, I am not even thinking about that ruling. I'm just focused on the performance, what we've got to do for Austin and beyond. That's what I'm thinking about. I shouldn't waste any energy on it, actually, because it's just very silly. For now, it seems like the Formula One drivers are preparing conversations about how to appropriately respond to their concerns over the FIA's harsh response to Max Verstappen's profanity in a news conference. This one could get spicy. But could this also affect Verstappen's future? All this fuss at the very least resulted in a somewhat downbeat momentum and vibe along the paddock, also amongst the reporters. Martin Brundle, analyst, presenter, and a former Formula One driver, spoke with Sky analysts about the situation and expressed his displeasure with everyone involved. For me, it's a storm in a teacup, he said. Churlish all round, to be honest, and I don't want to waste my heartbeats too much talking about it too much. We're all aligned on this, actually. I think the drivers should get together through the GPDA. They should think about, they represent themselves, they represent their families, their countries, they represent their amazing teams in the paddock, global sponsors, broadcasters. They know full well because they see them, they sign the caps, they see them in the fan zones. A lot of youngsters are following Formula One, especially these days. I think they have a responsibility to control this swearing. Of course, in the heat of the moment, it happens. Many of us swear like that, but gratuitous swearing I don't think is necessary, and it doesn't look good for them. Rosberg agreed on that point. After all, the 2016 world champion is a parent of 2 young children. There's 2 sides, he conceded. Now, there's my kids watching. On the other hand, we want them, the drivers, to be gladiators and show their emotions. So for me, the way is just bleep it out. Let them be. Let them show their emotions. I think that's important for all of us watching. If I was in Max's position though, this would not be so good, because he's wasting his energy on this and he needs full focus. He's fighting for the world championship at the moment, so I think it's not so great that he's like dealing with it. What do you think? Will this situation have another episode? And will this become one of the many reasons Verstappen is looking for a career elsewhere in motorsport? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.